Hi, Justice Timmer. Thank you for joining us today. We are embarking on a new jury education program that focuses on helping people understand that jury service is not the traditional or the typical headache that people might think it is, right? So what we wanted to do is bring you into the studio to talk about your jury service experience, because one thing that's important for us is to humanize the process and make sure that people understand citizens at all levels, they participate in jury service. You are the Chief Justice of the Arizona Supreme Court, and I believe that when you participate in jury service, you are a justice. So I want to talk about your experience. I want the public to understand that it's really important for them to not cringe when they see a jury summons. So let's talk about your experience. When you received that jury summons, Chief Justice, what were your first thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are probably like most people. It's like, oh no, now I got to do jury service.
Yeah.
How will I have the time? And will this fit into my schedule? Probably not. And it's just, of course, everybody thinks that this is just an interruption I don't need in my life. So that's my initial reaction. But
And then you showed up. I assume you went
well,
to,
before I even showed up, in Arizona, we make it very easy to do jury service. We are really committed to making it a great experience. And so the people that are in charge of that have done so. For example, so the first thing you do, you don't just go and take your summons and go show up. You go online and you just put your number in, and it will give you a free pass. So if this is not a convenient date for you to show up, then just tell us and you won't have to show up. It's just that easy.
Good.
So for me, it was not convenient. I had something going, and then it will ask you, well, when would be a good time for you? And so I identified some times in the future, and sure enough, I got the notice back saying, okay, well, this is the time then that you show up. And it was one that was convenient for me. So that was the initial thing. And I like that they were respecting my time.
and the process was super simple. You could
Very simple.
log into your computer and see if it was something that they could accommodate for you, and they did. So that's great. So then you show up to jury service. There's a lot of advancements, I think, that folks might not know about. So jury service they try to make it convenient, trying to accommodate your schedule. They provide you information to make sure that your experience is great from the very beginning. So whether it's instructions about parking, whether it's instructions about what you're going to eat. And this is a little premature, but those are things that jury service is now starting to consider, because we want to make sure that the public understands that the courts are being thoughtful in that sense. So you're rescheduled. Then what happened?
Yeah. Well, I answered a few questions again from home. They ask you some basic questions. So in the old days, you would have to go down and fill out a sheet of paper and take the time to do that and hand it in. But they figured out, now we have computers, and so why not just do it from the comfort of your own home? So you put some general information down about your availability, your job, those kinds of things before you go down. Then you go down and you check in. I was checked in right on time. Parking was easy. I knew exactly where to go. As you say, they tell you where to go. And then you are given a juror number. For me, it really didn't wait along at all. I was juror number 2, so I knew I'm going to get picked. Juror number 2 is
Is
like,
that
it's a numbers game of how many they need. I thought, unless they can find a reason that this is not the ideal case for me to sit on, I'm going to be selected. And you're seated in the jury box, and the lawyers, in my case, it was a lawyer and an unrepresented gentleman, are there. The judge gives you some kind of preliminary discussion, instructions about this is how things are going to go. Here's what this case is about, to give you a general sense. The judge will then introduce himself, his staff, the parties, the lawyers, and ask, does anybody know anybody? That, just to see if there's any kind of conflict.
Sure.
He revealed that, well, he knew me.
Right.
So that was kind of startling for him to say, well, I know her. But I don't feel like it's a conflict just because we're professional acquaintances.
Sure.
But he put the parties on notice of that so that they have an opportunity to object if they would have an objection. And they didn't.
Okay, good. So let's talk about peremptory challenges. That was something that used to be implemented before. and that might have disqualified you from participating. Is that correct?
Yeah, every time. And it's not a disqualification. A peremptory strike is something. It's just a freebie that every party, each side gets. Well, you can strike 3 or 4 people for any reason you like. You just don't like the look of them, as long as it's not for a bad reason. So a bad reason, an illegal reason, would be because of somebody's race, their gender, that kind of thing. You can't strike someone to try to shape a jury that way. But, maybe you just don't have a good vibe about someone, or maybe you don't, you haven't had good luck in prior juries with teachers or the policemen or something like that. So you strike them. Well, in Arizona, and so because of that, every time I showed up, I was stricken, because most lawyers say, I don't want to judge on my panel. And frankly, they don't like other lawyers on their panel. So they use them for that.
Gotcha. Okay. So now let's talk about the process of your experience. So you served on the jury. You were juror number 2. You were selected even after they went through the questioning. Were there any surprises while you served on the jury service? What type of case was it?
It was a civil case.
Okay.
It was a civil case. And by the way, I should mention that we just talked about peremptory strikes, but I failed to say that in Arizona, we've eliminated them for a number of reasons. The number one, I think, is that we believe that people have a constitutional right to participate in a jury. And we did not care for the idea that you could just get rid of someone that has come down to serve on the jury because you don't like the look of that.
Past, right?
Yeah. And so we're the only state in the nation that does not have peremptories anymore. So because of that, instead, what we have for cause strikes, meaning that's why you still have those questions. And you might have heard the term voir dire, which is simply a Latin way to say we're not questioning the jury. And the idea is to identify jurors who, despite best efforts, really just can't quite be fair in this particular kind of case.
Sure.
For example, maybe it's a DUI case. Well, maybe your spouse was killed by a drunk driver.
Sure.
That is not the best case for you to be on. And so that's an example of what the judge would let you off of this jury for cause, that kind of thing. So that's the purpose of the questioning that you just mentioned.
And that makes complete sense. I mean, I think another example would be if it's a family case and you've had some, issues with the family, or a divorce case. I think that might come into play, or definitely would come into play.
They're looking for, can you be fair in this case?
Right. Okay. So getting back to the surprises, what, if any, were the surprises that you experienced during jury service?
Well, not that many, really. Because I've always had a great respect for juries, and I have tried jury cases, and I know that juries, when you get them together, people really take this seriously, which is great. They might grumble getting there.
Right.
Once they're there, very protective of the idea that they need to do their service, and they do. So they listen. In Arizona, we allow jurors in cases to ask questions. If they're filtered through the parties and the judge, but you can write down a question to ask because you're trying to get at the correct decision.
Sure.
So, so I guess I wasn't surprised, but it's worth mentioning how attentive people were. And again, in Arizona, unlike other places, we allow juries in civil cases to discuss the case on breaks, as long as you're all together. So that was actually very enjoyable to hear other people's take on witnesses and what they thought in the case. And I had a very, very smart jury.
The different perspective, right? You're like, oh, I didn't think of that. Or perhaps they might sway your thoughts about a specific piece of the case or element of the case. What I was getting at for surprises is you were selected by your fellow jurors as a
person. Yes, one thing I had not contemplated when we eliminated peremptory strikes, and so they really can't get rid of lawyers and judges now on the panel, is how much the other jurors would look to that law-educated person.
Makes sense.
And so my antenna would go up when they're asking me, well, you're a judge, what do you think? And I was very cognizant of that I don't want to give, I don't want I'm just one of many,
Right.
and I shouldn't have an outsized opinion just because I'm a judge. So I affirmatively told them, listen to what this judge says in terms of instructing you on the law. That's what
Sure.
we need to do. And the judge, and so that was a surprise that they really were all looking to me. So they wanted to elect me as the foreperson. I tried to say, why don't you elect somebody else so that I wouldn't have that much impact.
Sure.
But they were, no, it has to be you. So I did that.
Well, good, good. And I think that's just, again, humanizing the process, right? Because you are a justice, you've been a judge for several years, and the confidence that your fellow jurors had in you, um, one is I think it gives them a little sense of comfort, but also I think that it's a great mix of people, and they probably looked to you for a little bit more guidance, but. Uh, like you said, you weren't expecting to be the foreperson, and probably didn't want to, but you opted to. So that was pretty exciting for them, I'm sure.
But we came to a resolution, which is very quickly. And because we've streamlined the process so much, the judge later told me when we were out done with the trial, saying, boy, I could get a jury picked and opening statement done by noon, which it used to be that was just unheard of. It
Right.
used to take all day long because of these peremptory strikes and because of not asking people questions while they're at home. And that's another element, even since I served on the jury, it's been a couple of years now, the more innovations have been made. So you might even for a specific case to give it a specific questionnaire at home to answer. So they can kind of weed you out if you have an obvious conflict, like my spouse was killed by a drunk driver. Well, okay, we're not going to put you on this DUI case. So,
Right.
that kind of thing. So they've really streamlined the process. So the whole thing was done in, I think for us, a day and a half.
Oh, wow. That is pretty streamlined. So now let's talk about real quickly. You mentioned this earlier, is that when uh, the room was filled with jurors, they might have, grumbled a bit getting there, but they felt really good about their participation in jury service after they were done. Um, how did you feel once you were done with your jury service, and how do you think that the public can identify with you?
Well, I felt very good. I was excited, frankly, to sit on a jury because after, trying cases for years and being on the other side of it, of course you want to know what goes on inside a jury room. So it was exciting for me to have that opportunity. I left gratified that the system worked and happy that everybody else on that jury thought that it was a good experience. That made me happy. We all respected the judge, the personnel in the courtroom, who were all very polite and bent over backwards. And without fail, and we see this because we know this from doing kind of exit interviews with jurors, that they all say, well, now I'm leaving jury service with a much better understanding of what the courts do
Sure.
and with a lot more trust in the courts because I see it up close and I see that it's a fair system. And so I find that very gratifying because that's exactly what we want.
Absolutely. And I think I'm in the minority because I've always wanted to serve on a jury and I've never been called. So I'm hoping that one of these days I'll be called for jury service and I can share my experience as well. Any closing thoughts about jury service? I know that, again, we've worked with the legislature to try to get pay increases, which the court has been successful in doing. Um, how can you ease their concerns about participating in jury service?
Well, I think that you raise a good point. It used to be that there was a financial barrier to serving on a juries for some people. Many employers pay still for their employees to go do jury service because they recognize the value in our democracy to having jury trials. So they'll pay for it, but not everybody does. Maybe they're retired or they're independent contractors, that kind of thing, and so they miss pay when they do jury service. So in addition to what they pay for parking and just your daily fee, you can now get up to $300 a day for jury service, which is I think the highest paid in the nation.
Right.
If you just put in for it and your employer's not paying for you, so
Right.
that has really opened things up for a lot of people to come and serve who otherwise would have said, I just can't, I can't, afford to miss the pay or get somebody for my kids or, that kind of thing. I leave you though with a thought that we're a rarity in this nation. Most countries do not have juries. That is something that is a real foundation, I think, of our court system, that we still believe in citizen-driven decisions and having a jury of your peers. I think all of us would agree, yes, that's who we want judging us in our situation. But if we don't have people that will come and participate, we lose that. So I know, and we're always trying to come up with something catchy, and I think that our little catchy slogan is it's fair because you were there.
Correct. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so please bear that in mind when you get that little envelope.
It was fair because you were there. Thank you, Chief Justice, for sharing your experience. And I hope that folks who watch this video will get a better understanding of the jury service process. And if you have any questions, there's more information on the pamphlet that you have in your hands. Thank you so much.